Cecily, Cecily, isn't it more Moulton's duty to water the flowers than yours? Your German grammar is on the table. Pray open it to page 15. We will repeat yesterday's lesson.
But I don't like German. It isn't at all a becoming language. I know perfectly well that Irish look quite plain after my German lesson.
Child, you know how anxious your guardian is that you should improve yourself in every way. He laid particular stress on your German as he was leaving for town yesterday afternoon.
Dear Uncle Jack is so very serious. Sometimes he's so serious that I think he cannot be quite well.
Your guardian enjoys the best of health. I know no one who has a higher sense of duty or responsibility. His gravity of demeanor is especially to be commended in one such comparatively young as he is.
I suppose that is why he so often seems a little bored when it is just us three.
Cecily, I'm surprised at you. Mr. Worthing has many troubles in his life. Idle merriment and triviality would be out of place in his conversation. You know how anxious he is about that unfortunate young man of his brother.
I do wish Uncle Jack would allow him to come here sometimes. We might have a good influence over him, Miss Prism. I'm sure you certainly would. You know German and geology and things of that kind that influence a man so much.
I don't even think that even I would have an effect on a character that, according to his own brother's mission, is irretrievably weak and vacillating. I don't even think I would desire to do so. I'm not for this modern mania of turning bad people into good people at a moment's notice. Cecily, you must put your diary away. I don't even see why you need to carry one about.
I keep a diary in order to enter the wonderful secrets of my life. If I didn't write them down, I would probably forget all about them.
Memory, my dear Cecily, is a diary we all carry about with us.
Yes, but memory often chronicles the things that have never happened and couldn't possibly have happened. I believe that memory is responsible for nearly all the novels that Moody sends us.
Do not speak slightly of novels, Cecily. I wrote one in my younger and happier days.
Was your novel ever published?
Alas, no. The manuscript was abandoned. I use the word as in lost or mislaid. To your effort, child, these games are profitless.
But I see dear Dr. Choswell coming up through the garden.
Dr. Choswell? This is indeed a surprise.
And how are we this morning, Miss Prism? You are, I trust, well.
Miss Prism has just been complaining of a slight headache. I think it would do her so much good to have a short walk with you in the park, Dr. Choswell.
Cecily, I have not said anything about a headache.
No, dear Miss Prism, I know, but I felt instinctively that you had a headache. In fact, I was thinking about it, not about my German lesson.
I hope, Cecily, you're not inattentive.
Oh, I'm afraid I am.
That is strange. Were I fortunate enough to be Miss Prism's pupil, I would hang upon her lips. I spoke metaphorically! The metaphor was drawn from the bees. I suppose Mr. Worthing has not returned from town yet?
We do not expect him till Monday afternoon.
Ah, yes. He usually likes to spend his Sunday in London. He's not one of those whose sole aim is enjoyment, as by all accounts, that unfortunate young man, his brother, seems to be. But may I not disturb Egeria and your pupil any longer?
Egeria? My name is Letitia, Doctor.
Merely a classical allusion drawn from the pagan authors. I will see you both, no doubt, at evensong.
I think, dear Doctor, I will have a little stroll with you. It seems I have a slight headache after all, and a walk might do it well.
Indeed, Mr. Simon, indeed. We might go as far as the schools and back.
Delightful. Cecily, in my absence, you will read your political economy. The chapter on the fall of the rupee, you may admit, it is somewhat too exciting for a young girl.
Horrid political economy, horrid geography, horrid German, ugh!
Mr. Ernest Worthing has just driven over from the station. He has brought his luggage with him.
Mr. Ernest Worthing, B4, the Albany. Uncle Jack's brother. Did you tell him that Mr. Worthing was in town?
Yes, miss. He seemed very much disappointed. I told him you and Miss Prism were in the garden. He said he was anxious to speak to you privately for a moment.
Tell Mr. Ernest Worthing to come out here. I suppose you'd better speak to the housekeeper about getting a room for him.
Yes, miss.
I've never met any really wicked person before. I feel rather frightened. I'm afraid he will look just like everyone else. He does.
You're my little cousin Cecily, I'm sure.
You're under some strange mistake. I am not little. In fact, I believe I am unusually tall for my age. But I am Cousin Cecily. You, I see from your card, are Uncle Jack's brother, my cousin Ernest. My wicked cousin Ernest.
Well, I'm not wicked at all. You mustn't think I'm wicked.
If you are not, then you've certainly been deceiving us all in a very inexcusable manner. I hope you've not been leading a double life, pretending to be wicked, but really being good all this time. That would be hypocrisy.
Well, of course. I've rather been reckless.
I'm glad to hear it.
Although, now that you may mention it, I've been very bad in my own small way.
I don't think you should be so proud of that. Though I'm sure it must have been very pleasant.
It's much pleasanter being here with you.
I don't see how you were here at all. Uncle Jack isn't supposed to be back till Monday afternoon.
Oh, it's a great disappointment, but I'm obliged to go up on Monday morning.
I think you'd better stay till Uncle Jack arrives. I know he wants to speak to you about your emigrating.
My what?
You're emigrating. He is sending you to Australia.
Australia! Ew, I'd sooner die.
Well, he said at dinner on Wednesday night, you would have to choose between this world, the next world, and Australia.
Oh, well, the reports I've received on Australia and the New World aren't very encouraging. This world is good enough for me, Cousin Cecily.
Yes, but are you good enough for it?
I'm afraid I'm not. Which is why I want you to reform me. You'll make that your mission, won't you?
I'm afraid I've no time this evening.
Well, do you mind me reforming myself?
It is rather quixotic of you, but I think you should try.
I will. I feel better already.
You're looking a little worse.
Oh, that's because I'm hungry.
How thoughtless of me. I should have remembered that when one is going to lead an entirely new life, one requires constant meals and nourishment. Won't you come in?
Want to offer me a rose?
A Marechal Neil?
Oh, no, I'd sooner have a pink one.
Why?
Because you are like a pink rose, Cousin Cecily.
I don't think it can be right for you to say such things. Miss Prism never speaks to me like that.
Well, then Miss Prism is a short-sighted old lady. You are the prettiest girl I've ever saw.
Miss Prism says that all good looks are a snare.
Oh, it is a snare that every sensible man would like to be caught in.
Oh, I don't think I would care to catch a sensible man. I wouldn't know what to talk to him about.
Where is Cecily? You are too much alone, dear doctor. You should get married. A misanthrope? I understand. A womanthrope? Never.
The precept as well as the practice of the primitive church was distinctly against matrimony.
And that is the exact reason why the primitive church has not lasted up to the present day. And you do not seem to realize, dear doctor, that by remaining single, a man converts himself into a constant, public temptation. Men should be more careful. It is this very celibacy that leads weaker vessels astray.
Was a man not equally attractive when married?
No married man is ever attractive, except to his wife.
And so I've been told, not even to her.
But where is Cecily?
Perhaps she follows back to the schools.
Mr. Worthing,
Mr. Worthing?
this is indeed a surprise. We did not expect you till Monday afternoon.
I have returned sooner than I expected. Dr. Chasuble, I hope you are well.
Oh dear Mr. Worthing, I trust that Scarborough does not betoken some terrible calamity.
My brother,
More shameful debts and extravagancies?
Still leading his life of pleasure?
dead!
Your brother Ernest dead?
Quite dead.
What a lesson for him. I trust he will profit by it.
I offer you my most sincere condolences, Mr. Worthing. You have at least the consolation of knowing you are always the most forgiving and generous of brothers.
Poor Ernest. He had many faults, but it is a sad blow.
Very sad indeed. Were you with him at the end?
No, he died abroad in Paris. I had a telegram last night from the manager of the Grand Hotel.
Was the cause of his death mentioned?
A severe chill, it seems.
We all are not perfect. I myself am particularly susceptible to drafts. Will the interment take place here?
No, he seems to have expressed the desire to be buried in Paris.
In Paris? I fear that hardly points at any very serious state of the mind at the last. You would no doubt wish for me to draw some allusion to his tragic domestic affliction next Saturday. My sermon on the meaning of the man in the wilderness can be adapted to almost any occasion. Joyful, or as in the present case, distressing. I have preached at harvest celebrations, christenings, confirmations, days of humiliation, and festal days. Last time I preached it was as a charity sermon on the behalf of the Society of Prevention of Discontent. The bishop, who was there, was much struck by some analogies I drew.
That reminds me. You mentioned christenings, I think, Dr. Chasuble. I suppose you know how to christen, all right? I mean, you aren't continually christening, are you?
It is to say one of the rector's most common duties in his parish. I've spoken to the poorer classes on it, but they don't seem to get what the thrift is.
But Mr. Worthing, is there any infant in whom you are interested? Your brother, I believe, was unmarried, was he not?
Oh, yes, quite unmarried.
Most people who live entirely for pleasure usually are.
Well, it isn't for any child, dear doctor. I'm particularly fond of children. No, the fact is, I myself would like to be christened this afternoon.
But surely, Mr. Worthing, you've been christened already.
I don't recall anything about it. Besides, I don't know if you have any other important thing to do, or you think I'm a little too old now.
Not at all. The sprinkling and indeed immersion of adults is a perfectly canonical practice.
Immersion?
Oh no, have no apprehensions. Sprinkling is all is indeed necessary, and I think most advisable are whether so changeable. What hour would you like the ceremony to be performed?
Oh, I might trot around 5, if that would suit you.
Perfectly. I have two similar cases around the same hour. A case of twins on your own cottage, on one of your outlying estates. Poor Jenkins, the carter, a most hardworking man.
I don't see much point in being christened among other babies. It would be childish. Would 5:30 do?
Admirably. Mr. Worthing, although I must now take leave on a house of sorrow, I just beg you not to be too much bowed down by grief. Bitter trials are often blessings in disguise.
This seems to me a blessing of an extremely obvious kind.
Uncle Jack! Oh, I'm pleased to see you back. What horrid clothes you're wearing. Do go and change.
Cecily,
What's the matter, Uncle Jack? Do look happy. You look as if you had a toothache, and I've got such a surprise for you. Who do you think is in the dining room? Your brother!
Who?
Your brother Ernest. He arrived here half an hour ago.
What nonsense! I haven't got a brother.
Oh, don't say that. However badly he may have treated you in the past, he is still your brother. You couldn't be so heartless as to disown him. I'll tell him to come out, and you will shake hands with him, won't you, Uncle Jack?
These are very joyful tidings.
after we all seem so resigned to his loss, his sudden return seems to me particularly distressing.
My brother?
Brother John, I've come down from town to tell you how very sorry I am for all the trouble I've caused you throughout the years, and that I intend to lead a better life, for the better.
Go away.
Uncle Jack, you are not going to refuse your own brother's hand.
Nothing will induce me to take his hand. I think his coming down here is disgraceful, and he knows perfectly well why.
Oh, Uncle Jack, do be nice. There's some good in everyone. Ernest has just been telling about his poor, invalid friend, Bunbury, whom he visits ever so often.
Of course, I admit all the faults are mine, but I must say, this coldness from Brother John is peculiarly painful. I expected more of an enthusiastic welcome, considering this is my first time coming here.
Uncle Jack, if you don't shake hands with Ernest, I will never forgive you.
I suppose I must then.
It's pleasant, is it not, to see so perfect a reconciliation? I think we may leave the two brothers alone, together.
Cecily, you will come with me.
Certainly, Miss Prism.
Algie, you must get out of this place at once. I don't allow any bumbering here.
I've put Mr. Ernest's things in the room next to yours, sir. I suppose that is all right?
What?
Mr. Ernest's luggage, sir. I've unpacked it and put it in the room next to your own.
Oh, I'm afraid I can't stay more than a week this time.
Merriman, order the dog cart at once. Mr. Ernest here has suddenly been called back to town.
Yes, sir.
Jack, Cecily's a darling.
You are not to talk of Miss Cardew like that. I don't like it.
Well, I don't like your clothes. You look perfectly ridiculous in them. Why on earth don't you go up and change? It's perfectly childish to be in deep mourning, especially when you have a man over your own house as a guest for a week. I call it grotesque.
You are certainly not staying here as a guest or anything else. You have got to leave by the 4:05 train.
I cannot. You're in deep mourning. It'd be very unkind if I left you while you're mourning. You do the same for me, I suppose. I'd find it very unfriendly if you didn't.
Well, will you go if I change my clothes?
Yes. However, I've never seen someone take so long with such little progress.
Well, at any rate, it's better than being overdressed as you are.
Oh, She loves me. She loves me not. She loves me. She loves me not. She loves me. Ah, there you are.
Oh, I simply came back to water the flowers. I thought you were with Uncle Jack.
Oh, he's gone to get the dog cart.
Oh, is he going to take you for a nice drive?
He's gonna send me away.
Then you've got to part.
I'm afraid so.
The dog cart is at the door, sir.
It can wait, Merriman, for 5 minutes.
Yes, miss.
I hope I don't offend you if I state quite frankly that I think you're the visible personification of absolute perfection.
I think your frankness does you great credit, Ernest. If you will allow me, I will copy your remarks into my diary.
Oh, you keep a diary. I'd give anything to look at it. May I?
Oh, no. You see, it's simply a very young girl's record of her own thoughts and impressions, and consequently meant for publication. But pray, Ernest, do go on. I delight in taking down from dictation. I have reached absolute perfection. You can go on. I'm quite ready for more.
Cecily, ever since I looked upon your incomparable beauty, I've dared to love you, wildly, devotedly, passionately, hopelessly?
I don't think you should tell me that you love me wildly, devotedly, passionately, hopelessly. Hopelessly doesn't seem to make that much sense, now does it?
Cecily,
The dog cart is waiting, sir.
tell her to come around next week at the same hour.
Yes, sir.
I don't think Uncle Jack would be very pleased if he heard you were staying on till the next hour.
Well, I couldn't care about Uncle Jack. I couldn't care about anyone else in the whole world, except for you. I love you, Cecily. Will you marry me?
You silly boy. Why? We've been engaged for the last 3 months.
For the last 3 months?
Yes, it will be exactly 3 months on Thursday.
But how did we become engaged?
Well, ever since dear Uncle Jack first confessed to us that he had a younger brother who's very wicked and bad, you, of course, have formed the chief topic of conversation between Miss Prism and myself. And a man who is much talked about is always very attractive. One feels there must be something in him after all. I dare say it was foolish of me, but I fell in love with you, Ernest.
Oh, but when did we become engaged?
On the 14th of June last, worn out by your entire ignorance of my existence, I determined to end the matter myself, one way or the other. And after a long struggle with myself, I accepted you here. The next day, I bought this little ring in your name. And this is the bangle with the true lover's knot I promised you always to wear.
Oh, did I buy you this? It's very pretty, isn't it?
Yes, you've wonderfully good taste, Ernest. It's the excuse I've always given for your leading such a bad life. And here is the box in which I keep all your dear letters.
My letters? But my own sweet Cecily, I've never written you any letters.
You need hardly remind me of that, Ernest. I remember I was forced to write your letters for you. I wrote 3 times a week, and sometimes oftener.
Oh, may I read them then?
No. They would make you far too conceited.
Oh, what a perfect angel you are.
You dear romantic boy. I hope your hair grows naturally. Does it?
Yes, with a little help from others.
I'm so glad.
You'll never break off our engagement, yes?
I don't think I could now that I have actually met you. Besides, of course, there is the question of your name.
Oh.
You must not laugh at me, darling, but it had always been a girlish dream of mine to love someone whose name was Earnest. You see, there is simply a confidence in that name that one must admire. I pity any poor married woman whose husband is not called Earnest.
Oh, but my own sweet Cecily, do you mean to say that you couldn't love me if I had some other name?
But what name?
Oh, any name you'd like. Algernon, for instance.
But I don't like the name of Algernon.
Well, I don't really see any reason why you shouldn't. I think it's rather an aristocratic name, yes. But seriously, Cecily, if my name was Algie, couldn't you love me?
I might respect you, Ernest. I might admire your character, but I fear I would not be able to give you my undivided attention.
Cecily, your rector here, I suppose, is thoroughly experienced to the rites and ceremonials of the church?
Oh, yes. Dr. Choswell is a most learned man. He's never written a single book, so you can imagine how much he knows.
Oh, well, I'd like to meet this Dr. Choswell on important matters of christenings. I mean, business. I probably won't be back till half an hour, so.
What an impetuous boy he is. I like his hair so much. I must enter his proposal into my diary.
Miss Fairfax has just called to see Mr. Worthing on very important business, Miss Fairfax states.
Is it Mr. Worthing in his garden?
Mr. Worthing went over in the direction of the rectory some time ago.
Miss Fairfax. I suppose that must be one of the many elderly good ladies who are associated with Uncle Jack's philanthropic work in London. I don't quite like women who are associated with philanthropic work. I think it is so forward of them. Yes, miss. Pray ask the lady to come out here. And you can bring tea.
Yes, miss. Miss Fairfax?
Pray allow me to introduce myself to you. My name is Cecily Cardew.
Cecily Cardew, what a very sweet name. Something tells me we're going to be great friends. I like you already more than I can say. My first impressions of people are never wrong.
How nice of you to like me so much after we've known each other such a comparatively short time. Pray, sit down.
I may call you Cecily, may I not?
With pleasure,
And you will always call me Gwendolyn, won't you?
if you wish.
Then that is all settled, is it not?
I hope so.
Perhaps this favorable for my mentioning who I am. My father is Lord Bracknell. You've never heard of Papa, I suppose.
I don't think so.
Outside the family circle, Papa, I am glad to say, is entirely unknown. I think that is quite as it should be. The home seems to me to be the proper sphere for a man. Cecily, Mama, whose views on education are remarkably strict, has brought me up to be extremely short-sighted. It's part of our system, so do you mind me looking at you through my glasses?
Oh, not at all, Gwendolyn. I'm very fond of being looked at.
You are here on a short visit, I suppose.
Oh, no, I live here.
Really, your mother, no doubt, or some female relative of advanced years resides here also.
Oh, no, I have no mother, nor in fact any relations.
Indeed.
My dear guardian, with the assistance of Miss Prism, has the arduous task of looking after me.
Your guardian?
Yes, I am Mr. Worthing's ward.
Oh, it is strange he never mentioned to me that he had a ward. How secretive of him. He grows more interesting hourly. I am not sure, however, that the news inspires me with feelings of unmixed delight. I'm very fond of you, Cecily. I have liked you ever since I met you. But I am bound to state that, now I know that you are Mr. Worthing's ward, I cannot help express the wish that you were, well, a little older than you seem to be, and not quite so very alluring in appearance. In fact, if I may speak candidly.
Pray do. I think that whenever anyone has anything unpleasant to say, one should always be quite candid.
Well, to speak with perfect candor, Cecily, I wish that you were fully 40 and more than usually plain for your age. Ernest has a strong, upright nature. He is the very soul of truth and honor, but even men of the noblest possible moral characters are extremely susceptible to the physical charms of others.
I beg your pardon, Gwendolyn. Did you say Ernest?
Yes,
Oh, but it is not Mr. Ernest Worthing who is my guardian. It is his brother, his elder brother.
Ernest never mentioned to me that he had a brother.
Oh, well, I'm sorry to say they have not been on good terms for a very long time.
That accounts for it. Now I think of it, no man ever mentions that he has a brother. The subject seems distasteful to most men. Of course, you are quite sure that it is not Mr. Ernest Worthing who's your guardian.
Quite sure. In fact, I'm going to be his.
I beg your pardon?
I see no reason why I should make any secret of it to you, dear Gwendolyn. Our little county newspaper is sure to chronicle the fact next week. Mr. Ernest Worthing and I are engaged to be married.
I feel there is some slight error. Mr. Ernest Worthing is engaged to me. The announcement will appear in the Morning Post on Saturday at the latest.
There must be some slight misconception here, Gwendolyn. Ernest proposed to me exactly 10 minutes ago.
It is certainly very curious, for he asked me to be his wife yesterday afternoon at 5:30. If you would care to verify the incident, pray do so. I never travel without my diary. I am sorry if it is of any disappointment to you, but I am afraid I have the prior claim.
It would distress me more than I can tell you, dear Gwendolyn, if it were to cause you any mental or physical anguish. But I feel bound to point out that since Ernest proposed to you, he has clearly changed his mind.
If the poor fellow is entrapped into any foolish promise, I shall consider it my duty to rescue him at once, and with a firm hand.
Whatever unfortunate entanglement my dear boy may have gotten himself into, I will never reproach him with it after we are married.
Do you allude to me, Miss Cardew, as an entanglement? You are presumptuous. On an occasion of this kind, it becomes more than a moral duty to speak one's mind. It becomes a pleasure.
Do you suggest, Miss Fairfax, that I entrapped Ernest into an engagement? How dare you? This is no time for wearing the shallow mask of manners. When I see a spade, I call it a spade.
I'm glad to say that I've never seen a spade. It is obvious that our social spheres have been widely different.
Shall I lay tea here as usual, miss?
Yes, as usual.
Quite a well-kept garden this is, Miss Cardew.
So glad you like it, Miss Fairfax.
I had no idea there were any flowers in the country.
Oh, flowers are as common here, Miss Fairfax, as people are in London.
Personally, I don't understand how anybody manages to exist in the country. The country always bores me to death.
Ah, that is what the newspapers these days call agricultural depression, is it not? I believe the aristocracy is suffering very much from it at present. It is almost an epidemic amongst them, I have been told. Would you like some tea?
Thank you.
Sugar?
No, thank you. Sugar is not fashionable anymore.
Cake or bread and butter?
Bread and butter. Cake is rarely seen at the best houses nowadays. You have filled my tea with lumps of sugar, and though I asked most distinctly for bread and butter, you have given me cake. I am known for the gentleness of my disposition and the extraordinary sweetness of my nature, but I must warn you, Miss Cardew, you may go too far.
To save my poor, innocent, trusting boy from the machinations of any other girl, there are no lengths to which I would not go.
From the moment I saw you, I distrusted you. I felt that you were false and deceitful. I am never deceived in such matters. My first impressions of people are invariably right.
It seems to me, Miss Fairfax, that I'm trespassing on your valuable time. No doubt you have many other calls of a similar character to make in the neighborhood.
Ernest, my own Ernest.
Gwendolyn, darling.
A moment. May I ask if you're engaged to be married to this young lady?
To dear little Cecily? Of course not. What could have put that idea into your pretty little head?
Thank you. You may.
I knew there must be some misunderstanding, Miss Fairfax. The gentleman whose arm is currently around your waist is my dear guardian, Mr. John Worthing.
I beg your pardon?
This is Uncle Jack.
Jack? Oh!
Here is Ernest.
My own love.
A moment. May I ask if you are engaged to be married to this young lady?
To what young lady? Gwendolyn! Oh, who put such an idea into your pretty little head?
Thank you. You may.
I felt there was some slight error. The gentleman who is now embracing you is my cousin, Mr. Algernon Moncrief.
Algernon Moncrief. Ugh. Are you called Algernon?
I cannot deny it.
Is your name really John?
I could deny it if I liked. I could deny anything if I liked, but it certainly has been John for years.
A gross deception has been practiced among the both of us.
My poor wounded Cecily!
My sweet wronged Gwendolyn!
You will call me sister, will you not?
There's just one question I would like to be permitted to ask my dear guardian.
An admirable idea. Mr. Worthing, where is your brother Ernest? We are both engaged to be married to your brother Ernest, so it is a matter of some importance to us to know where your brother Ernest is at present.
Gwendolyn, Cecily, it is very hard for me to speak the truth. It is the first time in my life that I've been reduced to such a painful position, and I'm quite inexperienced with doing anything of the kind. However, I will tell you quite frankly that I have no brother Ernest. I never had a brother at all, and I certainly don't plan on having one in the near future.
No brother. At all?
None.
Have you never had a brother of any kind?
Never. Not even of any kind.
It is quite clear, Cecily, that neither of us is engaged to be married to anyone.
It is not a very pleasant position for a young girl to suddenly find herself in, is it?
Let us go into the house. They will hardly venture to come after us there.
No. Men are such cowards, aren't they?
This ghastly state of things is what you call bun burying, I suppose.
Yes, and what a wonderful bun bed he is, too. One of the most perfect bun berries I've ever had in my life.
Well, the only small satisfaction that I'll ever get out of this is that your friend Bunbury is quite exploded. You won't be able to run down to the country as often as you like to now, and not a good thing for you too.
Your little brother seems to be a little bit off color, doesn't he, dear Jack? You won't be able to go up into town as often as you'd like, as your wicked custom was, and not a bad thing either.
As for your conduct toward Miss Cardew, I'd say taken into a sweet, simple, innocent girl like that is quite inexcusable, to say nothing of the fact that she is my ward.
I can see no defense at all against you deceiving a brilliant, clever, and thoroughly experienced young lady like Miss Fairfax. After all, she is my first cousin.
I wanted to be engaged to Gwendolyn, that is all. I love her.
Well, I wanted to simply be engaged to Cecily. I adore her.
There is certainly no chance of your marrying Miss Cardew.
And I don't see any likelihood, Jack, of you and Miss Fairfax ever being united.
How can you stand there, calmly eating muffins, when we are in this horrible situation I can't make out? You seem to me to be perfectly heartless.
Well, I can eat muffins in an agitated manner. They'll probably get on my cuffs. One should always eat muffins quite calmly. It is the only way to eat them.
I say it is perfectly heartless. You're eating at all under the circumstances.
When I'm in great trouble, eating is the only thing that consoles me. Indeed, as anyone who knows me intimately will tell you, I refuse everything but food and drink. And as of right now, I'm eating muffins because I am unhappy. Besides, I'm particularly fond of muffins.
Well, that is no reason why you should eat them all in that greedy way.
Well, I wish you'd take the tea cakes instead. I don't like tea cake.
Good heavens, I suppose a man may eat his own muffins in his own garden.
But you just said it was perfectly heartless.
I said it was perfectly heartless under the circumstances. That is a completely different thing.
That may be, but muffins are the same. Oh.
Algie, I wish to goodness you would go.
I cannot. I have already made arrangements with Dr. Chasuble to be christened at 5:45 under the name of Earnest.
My dear fellow, the sooner you give up the nonsense, the better. I made arrangements with Dr. Chasuble at 5:30 to be christened under the name of Earnest. Gwendolyn would wish it. We can't be both christened under the name of Earnest. It would be absurd. Besides, I have the perfect right to be christened if I like. There is no evidence at all that I have been christened in the past. I should take it extremely probable I never was so, and so does Dr. Chasuble. It is entirely different in your case. You have been christened already.
Ah, but I hadn't been christened in years.
Yes, but you have been christened. That is the important thing.
Quite so, as I know my constitution can stand it. If you do not know whether or not you've been christened already, I find it rather dangerous if you venturing upon it now. It might make you unwell. You can hardly have forgotten that someone very closely connected to you has just been carried off this week in Paris by a severe chill. You're at the muffins. I wish you wouldn't. I told you I was particularly fond of muffins.
Algie, I have already told you to go. I don't want you here. Why don't you go?
Well, that's because I haven't finished my tea yet.
You're drinking my tea!
This isn't your tea. You're eating my muffins.
They're not your muffins!
The fact that they did not at once follow us into the house as anyone else would have done seems to me to show that they have some sense of shame left.
They've been eating muffins. That looks like repentance.
They're looking at us. What effrontery!
They're approaching. That's very forward of them.
Let us preserve a dignified silence.
Certainly. It's the only thing left to do now.
This dignified silence seems to produce an unpleasant effect.
Most distasteful.
But we will not be the first to speak.
Certainly not.
Mr. Worthing, there is one question I would like to put to you. Much depends on your reply.
Mr. Moncrief, kindly answer me the following question. Why did you pretend to be my guardian's brother?
Oh, in order that I may have the opportunity of meeting you.
Certainly seems a satisfactory answer, does it not?
Mr. Worthing, what explanation can you offer to me for pretending to have a brother? Was it in order that you may come up to town to see me as often as possible?
Certainly, Miss Fairfax.
Their explanations appear quite satisfactory.
I am more than content with what Mr. Moncrief has said.
You think we should forgive them?
Yes. No. I mean, no.
True, I had forgotten. There are principles at stake that one cannot surrender. Which of us shall tell them the task is not a pleasant one?
Could we not both say it at the same time?
An excellent idea. Will you take the time for me?
Certainly.
Your Christian names are still an insuperable barrier. That is all.
Will you take the time for me?
Our Christian names, is that all?
But we're going to be christened this afternoon.
For my sake, you are prepared to do this terrible thing?
I am.
To please me, you're ready to face this fearful ordeal?
I am.
How absurd to talk of the equality of the sexes, where questions of self-sacrifice are concerned. Men are infinitely beyond us.
We are.
They have moments of physical courage of which we women know absolutely nothing.
Darling,
Darling.
Lady Bracknell.
Good heavens!
Gwendolyn! What does this mean?
merely that I am engaged to be married to Mr. Worthing, Mama.
Sit down! Apprised, sir, of my daughter's sudden flight by her trusty maid, whose confidence I purchased by means of a small coin. I followed her once by a luggage train. Of course, Mr. Worthing, you will clearly understand that all communication between yourself and my daughter must cease immediately from this moment, on this point, as indeed on all points. I am firm.
I am engaged to be married to Gwendolyn, Lady Bracknell.
You were nothing of the kind, sir. And now, as regards to Algernon. Ahem! Algernon,
Yes, Aunt Augusta?
may I ask if it is in this house that your invalid friend Mr. Bunbury resides?
Oh, Bunbury doesn't live here. In fact, he's somewhere else at present.
Where?
Oh, he's dead.
Dead? When did Mr. Bunbury die? His death must have been extremely sudden.
He exploded.
Huh?
I mean, I killed him this
What?
afternoon. The doctors had realized that he could no longer live, so he had died.
Really? He seems to have had great confidence in the opinion of his physicians. I'm glad, however, that he made up his mind at last to some definite course of action and acted under proper medical advice. And now that we have buried Mr. Bunbury, may I ask Mr. Worthing, who was the young lady whose hand my nephew Algernon is now holding to what seems to me a peculiarly unnecessary manner?
That is Miss Cecily Cardew, my ward.
And what relation does she have to you, Algernon?
I'm going to be engaged to her, Aunt Augusta.
I beg your pardon?
I am engaged to be married to Mr. Moncrief, Lady Bracknell.
I do not know whether there's anything particularly exciting in the air of this part of Hertfordshire, but the amount of engagements that go on seems to me considerably above proper average that the statistics have laid down for our guidance. I think a preliminary inquiry on my part not be out of place. Mr. Worthing, who is Miss Cardew?
Miss Cardew is the granddaughter of the late Mr. Thomas Cardew of 149 Belway Square, Gervais Park, SW, Dorking, Surrey, and the Spartan 5-Shire, NB.
That does not sound unsatisfactory. 3 addresses always inspiring confidence, even in tradesmen. So far, I'm satisfied.
I have also in my possession, you'll be pleased to hear, records of Miss Cardew's birth, registration, baptism, whooping cough, vaccination, confirmation, and the measles, both the English and the German variety.
Ah, a life crowded with incident, I see, though perhaps somewhat too exciting for a young girl. I'm not in favor of premature experiences. Gwendolyn, the time approaches of our departure. We have not a minute to lose. As a matter for Mr. Worthing, I had better ask you if Miss Carter has any little fortune.
Oh, just about 130,000 pounds in funds, that is all. Goodbye, Lady Bracknell, and so pleased to have seen you again.
A moment, Mr. Worthing. 130,000 pounds? And in funds? Miss Cardew seems to be a most attracting young lady. Now that I look at her. Come here, dear. Sweet child, your dress is sadly simple, and your hair seems as nature might have left it. But we can soon alter all that. A thoroughly experienced French maid produces marvelous result in a brief space of time. I remember recommending one to young Lady Lansing, and after 3 months, your own husband did not know her.
And after 6 months, nobody knew her.
Kindly turn around, sweet child. Algernon,
Oh, yes, Aunt Augusta?
there are distinct social possibilities in Miss Cardew.
Oh, well, Cecily is the dearest, sweetest, cutest girl in the whole world. I don't care 2 pence about social possibilities.
Never speak disrespectfully of society, Algernon. Only people who can't get into it do that. Dear child, of course you know that Algernon has nothing but his debts to depend upon. I'm not in favor of mercenary marriages. When I married Lord Bracknell, I had no fortune of any kind, but I wouldn't dream of letting that stand in my way. I suppose I should give you my consent.
Oh, thank you, Aunt Augusta.
Cecily, you may kiss me.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
The marriage, I think, had better take place quite soon.
Thank you, Aunt Augusta.
To speak frankly, I'm not in favor of long engagements. They give people the opportunity of finding each other's character before marriage, which I think is never advisable.
Pray excuse me for interrupting you, Lady Bracknell, but this engagement is quite out of the question. I am Miss Carter's guardian. She does not marry without my consent until she comes of age. That consent I absolutely decline to give.
Upon what grounds, may I ask?
It pains me very much to speak quite frankly about your nephew, Lady Bracknell, but I suspect him of being untruthful.
Untruthful? My nephew Algernon? Impossible, he's an Oxonian.
I fear there could be no possible doubt about the matter. You see, during my temporary absence in London, under a question of romance, he succeeded in obtaining admission into my house by means of a false pretense of being my brother. He succeeded in the course of the afternoon by alienating the affections of my only ward. He subsequently stayed to tea and devoured every single muffin. And what makes his conduct all the more heartless is that he knew from the first that I had no brother, never had a brother, not even of any kind. I distinctly told him so myself yesterday afternoon.
Mr. Worthing, after careful consideration, I have decided to entirely open my nephew's conduct to you. Come here, dear. How old are you?
Well, I'm really only 18, but I always admit to 20 when I go to evening parties.
Well, it will not be long before you come of age and free from the restraints of tutelage, so I don't think your guardian's consent, after all, a matter of any importance.
Pray excuse me for interrupting you again, Lady Bracknell, but it is only fair to tell you that Miss Cardew, according to the terms of her grandfather's will, doesn't come of age until she's 35.
That does not seem to be a grave objection. 35 is a very attractive age.
Algie, could you wait for me till I'm 35?
Oh, you know I could.
Yes, I felt it instinctively, but I couldn't wait all that time.
Then what is there to be done?
I don't know, Mr. Moncrief.
Mr. Worthing, as Miss Cardew positively states that she cannot wait till she is 35, a remark which I am bound to say seems to show a somewhat impatient nature. I would beg of you to reconsider your decision.
But my dear Lady Bracknell, the matter is entirely in your hands. The moment you accept to my marriage with Gwendolyn, I will most happily allow your nephew to form an alliance with my ward.
Mr. Worthing, you must be quite aware that that which you ask is out of the question.
Then a passionate celibacy is all that any of us can look forward to.
That is not the destiny I propose to Gwendolyn. Algernon, of course, can choose for himself. Come, dear, we have missed 5 if not 6 trains.
Is everything quite ready for the christenings?
Christening, sir? Is that not somewhat premature?
Both these gentlemen have expressed a desire for immediate christening.
At their age, The idea is grotesque and irreligious. Algernon, I forbid you to be Christian. I will not hear such excesses. Lord Bracknell would be highly displeased if he learned that that was the way in which you spent your time and money.
Am I to understand then, there shall be no christenings at all whatsoever this afternoon?
I don't think that, as things now stand, Dr. Chosbull, that it would be of any practical value to either of us.
I agree to your such sentiments from you, Mr. Worthing. I was to return to the church at once. Indeed, I have just been informed for the last hour and a half. Miss Prism has been waiting for me in the vestry.
Prism? Did I hear you mention a Miss Prism?
Indeed, Lady Bracknell, I am on my way to join her.
Pray to allow me to detain for the moment. But this matter may prove of one of vital importance to myself and Lord Bracknell. Is this Miss Prism remotely connected with education?
She's the most cultivated of ladies and a very picture respectability.
It is obviously the same person. May I ask what position she holds in your household?
I am a celibate, madam!
Miss Prism has been, for the last 3 years, Miss Cardew's esteemed governess and valued companion.
I must see this Miss Prism at once. Let her be sent for.
There you are, dear Canon. I've been waiting for you in the vestry for nearly half an hour.
Prism!
Lady Bracknell.
Come here, Prism. Prism, where is that baby? 27 years ago, Prism, you left Lord Bracknell's house, number 104, Upper Gosnever Street, in charge of a perambulator that contained the baby of male sex. You never returned. A few weeks later, through the elaborate investigation of the Metropolitan Police, the perambulator was discovered at midnight, standing by itself in a remote corner of Bayswater. It contained the manuscript of a 3-volume novel of usually revolting sentimentality. But the baby was not there, Prism. Where is that baby?
Lady Bracknell, I admit with some shame that I do not know, only that I wish I did. The plain facts of the case are these. On the day that you mention, a day that is forever branded in my memory, I set out as usual to take the baby out in the perambulator. I had also with me a somewhat old but capacious handbag in which I intended to place a work of fiction that I'd written in my few spare hours. In a moment of mental abstraction, I placed the manuscript in the bassinet and the baby in the handbag.
But where did you deposit the handbag?
Do not ask me, Mr. Worthing.
Miss Prism, this is of no small importance to me. I insist on knowing where you deposited the handbag.
The cloakroom at Victoria Station, the Brighton line.
I must retire to my room for a moment. Gwendolyn, wait here for me.
If you are not too long, I will wait here for you all my life.
What do you think this means, Lady Bracknell?
I dare not even suspect Dr. Chasuble.
Uncle Jack seems strangely agitated.
Your guardian has a very emotional nature.
This noise is extremely unpleasant.
This suspense is terrible. I hope it will last.
It has stopped now.
I wish he would arrive at some conclusion.
Is this the handbag, Miss Prism? Examine it carefully before you speak. The happiness of more than one life depends on your answer.
It appears to be mine. Yes, here, an injury received on the upsetting of a Grower Street omnibus in younger and happier days. In the lock, on the inside, my initials. Yes, the bag is undoubtedly mine. Thank you for returning it to me so suddenly. It has been a great inconvenience being without it all these years.
Miss Prism, more is restored to you than the handbag. I was the baby you placed in it.
You?
Yes, Mother!
I am unmarried.
Unmarried? I must admit, this is a serious blow. But after all, who could cast a stone against one who has suffered? Cannot an act of repentance wipe out an act of folly? Why must there be one rule for men and another for women? Mother, I forgive you.
Mr. Worthing, there must be some confusion. There is the woman who could tell you who you really are.
Lady Bracknell, I hate to seem inquisitive, but would you kindly inform me of who I am?
I'm afraid that the news I gave you will not altogether please you. You are the son of my poor sister, Miss Moncrief, and consequently, Algernon's elder brother.
What?
Algy's elder brother! Then I have had a brother after all. I knew that I had a brother. I have always said that I had a brother. Cecily, how could you ever doubt that I had a brother? Oh, come here, you. Dr. Cosmo, my unfortunate brother. Gwendolyn, my unfortunate brother.
My own? But what own are you? What is your Christian name now that you are someone else?
Good heavens, I had quite forgotten about that fact. Aunt Augusta, a moment. At the time I was left at the handbag, I had been christened already.
Every luxury the money could buy was lavished on your very fond, doting parents.
Then I was christened. That gets rid of that matter. Now, what name was I given? And please, let me know the worst.
Being the eldest son, you were naturally christened after your father.
Yes, but what was our father's Christian name?
I remember now that the general was called Earnest. I knew I had some particular reason for disliking the name.
Ernest, I knew from the first that you could have no other name.
Gwendolyn,
at last.
My own Ernest.